Welcome to Speak for Yourself. I'm Jason Whitlock. Colin Cowherd has the day off. Coming up, I'll tell you what I thought of Cowherd's confrontation with Baker Mayfield today. But let's start in the NBA, where, mark my words, the Los Angeles Clippers are going to embarrass the Los Angeles Lakers this summer. That's my big thought on the night the NBA begins its annual replenishment. The NBA draft opens in a couple of hours. Teams will roll the dice on a bunch of 19 and 20-year-olds who aren't ready to help, but will inspire some measure of hope. The draft used to be the crown jewel of the NBA offseason. Now it's just an appetizer. The main course is veteran player mobility through free agency or demanded trades. And this is where I expect the Clippers to turn the NBA world upside down this offseason. This is where I expect 80-year-old Jerry West to stitch a clown suit on the organization that made him famous as a player and an executive. Jerry West, lead consultant for the Clippers, versus Magic Johnson, president of the Lakers, will be the story of this offseason. The Staples Center will be ground zero for a basketball New Jack City. And when it's over, don't be surprised when Magic is standing in center court crying, CMB, CMB, man, we all we got. Am I my Lakers keeper? When it comes to the pursuit of LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard, West will be as heartless and greedy as Nino Brown. I think he's going to land them both. I really do. Think about it. Owner Steve Ballmer, executive Jerry West, and head coach Doc Rivers. That trio is far superior to Jeannie Buss, Magic Johnson, and Luke Walton. Ballmer has far more money than the Buss family. West's experience helping shape the Golden State Warriors and the Shaq-Kobe Lakers trumps anything Magic has accomplished as a sports executive. And Doc Rivers' resume towers over Luke Walton's. Leonard has told the Spurs that he wants to play in Los Angeles. Okay, I'm sure he'd prefer to play for the Lakers. But Kawhi's preference won't matter to the Spurs. They'll be only interested in assets. The Lakers' assets aren't all that inviting, particularly Lonzo Ball. But Tobias Harris, Lou Williams, the two lottery picks the Clippers have tonight are all interesting pieces. More important than any of that, where I think the Clippers are going to really win this war is with their pitch to LeBron James. LeBron has an enormous problem. He desperately wants to catch Michael Jordan in the race for greatest of all time. He's highly unlikely to catch him in number of titles. LeBron has big stains on his reputation with his quirky, weird behavior and attitude in big playoff series. Breaking out the cast after getting swept in this year's finals was a huge mistake. So how can LeBron gain ground on Jordan? If he came to LA and made the perennial also-ran Clippers bigger than the Lakers. Winning a title or two in a Clippers uniform is a narrative his supporters could sell. LeBron disrupting the Lakers' stranglehold on LA and the Warriors dynasty would definitely put LeBron back in the GOAT conversation. Winning titles with the Lakers won't be nearly as compelling. He'd just be doing what Wilt, Kareem, and Shaq have already done. LeBron would be playing in the shadow of Magic and Kobe. Lead the Clippers, and they'd call the new arena that Ballmer wants to build in Inglewood the house that LeBron built. All right, joining me now, a former teammate of LeBron James and a former NBA champion, Eddie House, and Fox Sports NBA analyst Chris Broussard. Chris, you got that little smile on your face like you got a clown suit you got ready for me. Ain't no way. Jerry West and the Clippers can do this.
I can't believe you just said all that.
Why?
Look, I have nothing but love and respect for the logo. Jerry West, great guy, great recruiter, great team builder. But I don't agree with anything else you said. I don't think the Clippers have more assets to give San Antonio than the Lakers do. If I can get Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, those are two. Ingram's a number 2 pick. Kuzma is a lottery-level talent. Those two, Greg Popovich could work wonders with them in San Antonio. And if he wants Lonzo Ball, he's another guy, high-level talent that could really help San Antonio.
He wants no parts of Lonzo Ball.
I get that. But here's
Let me stop you on one other thing. Ramona Shelburne has already reported today the Spurs shut the Lakers down. The Lakers have shown their hand to them, and they're not interested. Popovich agrees with me.
The Lakers certainly would be the last team they want to deal with, but they also don't want to send Kawhi to the West. And they don't want to give Kawhi what he wants, which is Los Angeles, period. If it can't be the Lakers, he'd take the Clippers. So I think the Clippers, they might not get hung up on as quickly as the Lakers, but they'll get hung up on too.
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of, while you were saying everything, I'm like, you know what, that could be a possibility. But it makes sense in theory. But I don't think money-wise it could work. They do have some assets with Lou Will, the 2 draft picks tonight in the lottery. They could try to put together to get a Kawhi. But then after that, they're kind of strapped on the cap side. DeAndre Jordan will have to opt out to restructure his deal. Austin Rivers will have to restructure his deal.
Who's the richest man in the NBA?
But that doesn't matter.
He'll pay the luxury tax.
I mean,
he can pay.
You spending his money,
that doesn't matter. There's a salary cap that if they only have $12 million worth of room or whatever, it doesn't matter. They can't even get into
the... You can pay the tax.
You can't sign a player
threshold.
if you don't have the room.
Okay,
regardless
you gotta have
of
the
the
slot.
tax.
I get what you're saying.
So,
keep going, Eddie.
So they also have the guy, Milos, I don't know, Teodosic or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
he's also under, but the rest of the team, if you look at them, you take Lou Williams away. You have Kawhi, and then you bring LeBron. There's nothing else there for them to really work with and move forward with. You're going to have guys like Gallinari on your team. You're going to have basically the same cast of characters from the Cavaliers with just different last names and different numbers.
Another thing that's kind of going around the league on the low is that this Lakers thing with LeBron, just like with Dan Gilbert and LeBron, the thinking was there could be a wink-wink ownership type thing with this. In the future, obviously you can't do it as a player.
They're not giving LeBron James ownership of the Lakers.
Not total ownership, but some ownership.
Why would they didn't do it for Kobe. They haven't done it for, have they even done it for Magic?
I'm just telling you what's going around a little bit, all right?
I don't buy it.
I could see that being something. I also think you gonna tell me if you win a championship with the Clippers, that's bigger than with the Lakers? Come on.
It's borderline.
How? How is it even
borderline?
Nobody cares about the Clippers.
Yeah, but then they'll start to care about them.
Did they care about Brooklyn when they were actually pretty good with Joe Johnson, Darren Williams,
But they didn't
Kevin
win a
Garnett?
championship.
But
So
in New
championship
York,
changes everything.
the Knicks were still the biggest story in New York. How were the Clippers? Did the Clippers totally eclipse the Lakers in the last 5 years when they actually had their big three?
Hold for 1 second. The Brooklyn Nets never had the biggest attraction in all of sports, let alone the NBA. They never had that. Once LeBron James showed up, who were the Cleveland Cavaliers before LeBron James?
But at least it was his hometown. I'm not
understand
saying they wouldn't be big.
You come to the Clippers and you tell me the LeBron James people who think he's the greatest of all time wouldn't sit there and say, he made the Cavaliers relevant and took them to a championship. Now he takes the laughing stock of the NBA and makes them champions, makes it so they can build this arena in Inglewood. You're talking about Steve Ballmer, the richest guy. He's worth $40 billion.
But again,
You're talking about
that's
Jerry.
irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant. Having
He'll
that
go
much
into
money
the
is
luxury
never.
tax, but I mean, he still has to work within the rules of the league.
And you're telling me Jerry West can't put together some kind of deal. He and Doc Rivers haven't sat down and figured out a way they can make it work. You can't tell me the Clippers aren't eyeing LeBron and Kawhi Leonard and have figured out a way that they can make it work?
It's going to be hard. They're going to have to deplete their roster, but I agree with you on this fact. With LeBron, we do know this. He respects Jerry West, and he respects the heck out of Doc Rivers. So, in theory, that sounds good, but Lakers is the only place, though, that he could land up because of the cap space, because they have all these guys signed to these rookie deals. Luol Deng is the only contract that's crazy in $18 million, and they're trying to dump that. I mean, they're going to create more space, and they're going to have the opportunity to bring LeBron, to possibly bring Kawhi, and maybe another guy.
Two things. One, if he wants to just win for a woe-begone franchise, go to New York. That would be bigger than the Clippers and maybe even the Lakers if he could do that.
Doesn't have the weather.
And he stays
doesn't
in the
have
East.
2 homes.
He stays in the East.
Does he have 2 homes in New York?
Coming. No.
Does he have 2 homes in New York?
No.
He's got 2 homes out in Los Angeles.
Let me say, look, Doc, and I know you played for Doc, and most of the players who left the Clippers ripped Doc when they left. Big Baby Davis, Jared Dudley, Chris Paul, that's one.
You just said Big Baby
Chris
Davis.
Paul, one of the major reasons, if not the major reason he left the Clippers was to get away from Doc. Who's Chris Paul's best friend? LeBron. You don't think LeBron's heard those horror stories? Now, I'm not saying LeBron doesn't have respect for Doc, But I don't
You know
know
what
if
that's
he's
like?
got
You know what that's like?
as big
remember
of a
when
draw.
remember when you were young and single years and years ago? Your best friend didn't like some girl and bad mouthed her, but you was like, no, you didn't know what you was doing. That's exactly how
had
LeBron.
championship level talent for the last 4 or 5 years, and they got to the second round.
And Chris Paul was getting hurt, and Chris Paul's a lot of those guys was ripping Doc for this reason because he's paid his son. Everybody's
Yes,
talking about, oh
true.
man, he giving his son all that money, and I took a step back because I have 3 kids. If I'm in that position, I will pay him too. I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you empower your kids to get
And
some
you
money?
get ripped and criticized.
And
just
so
like
what?
Doc Rivers
And
does.
you could go home at the end of the night and sleep well.
Honest to goodness, though. Honest to goodness. If you're LeBron James and/or Kawhi Leonard, and you take a meeting with the Lakers or the Clippers, and Jerry West, Steve Ballmer, and Doc Rivers are sitting in one room, and Magic, Jenny Buss, and Luke Walton are sitting in the other
And
room.
Rob Pelinka. Don't forget him.
We just comparing the 3 that had. We just going.
You
3
gonna
for
leave
3.
out the GM.
Well, and all right, Rob Pelinka sitting in one room. What's more impressive, Eddie?
I think-
What? Tell the truth.
Well, you got Doc and you got the logo there, but you also have Magic.
Thank you.
And Magic steps up. But this is the thing, you got to look at what kind of team are you going to have. If he comes to the Lakers, you know that he's able to attract 3, possibly 2 more big-time free agents, and then they got good young talent that surround them, and then sprinkle a free agent, a veteran here and there. With the Clippers, there's nothing that they can do. They're so strapped that they're like their hands are tied. It sounds great in theory. That would be good. That would be a great story, but I just think that there's no way that could possibly happen.
And of the guys you mentioned, who's the biggest person in LA?
Magic?
Of the guys that I mentioned, who's the biggest person? Magic.
Magic.
But let me finish. Let me finish my statement. Once LeBron moves to LA, Magic then becomes number 2.
Well, Magic is big, though, off the court. He's made all of it. I mean, he only made about $30 million as a player. He's worth like $700 million. Not that LeBron necessarily needs a mentor. He certainly doesn't in that regard. But don't think Magic's not saying, this city can be yours. Just like it's mine, it can be yours.
And you know what Steve Ballmer will say? Magic is a fly on an elephant's rear end in comparison to me in terms of clout internationally, globally, in LA, in Brentwood, in Compton.
Well,
he's nothing compared to me.
But with that...
And if you really want to know how to get this money, trust me over LeBron. And that's going to make perfect sense to LeBron James. And anybody.
Who can relate better to LeBron, Steve Ballmer or Magic Johnson?
Doc Rivers.
No.
We talking about them
Magic-
too with their
Magic
money.
Johnson.
We talking about the fly on the elephant's rear end. Who could he gonna listen to that bzz, bzz, bzz.
When LeBron,
over that elephant stomping.
When LeBron faltered in the finals, 2011, against Dallas, one of the guys he contacted, I know he contacted Jerry West, but he also contacted Magic. What am I doing wrong? How can I get over the hump? Learn how to win. That's how much respect he has for him.
Pat Riley got him to go to Miami. Jerry West is the older version of Pat Riley. Jerry
He
West.
didn't have Wade and Bosh.
Yeah, he didn't have Wade and Bosh coming there, and he had to take a pay cut as well. They all had to make the same amount of money. Everybody else made minimum except Mike Miller on the
I'm a gambler.
mid-level.
I'm a gambler. And I don't know if y'all know anything about it. Long money always wins. Always wins. Steve Ballmer's got the longest money. The Buss family doesn't even compare to him financially. And
No,
trust
they
me.
don't.
And
That's why I
LeBron's
think
mindset
ownership could be.
right. LeBron's mindset. He can see what Magic is in comparison to Steve Ballmer and who he's going to. That room, and Eddie, you dodged, I think, on this. That room, Ballmer, Doc Rivers, Jerry West, is more impressive than any room the Lakers could put together. You can throw Kareem and whoever else.
No, you can't throw
dig
Kareem.
Wilt Gray.
LeBron is
Wilt out of a
buddies
great-
with Warren Buffett. He can get all the advice he needs from Warren Buffett. I mean, not that he would neglect advice from Steve Ballmer, but still, he doesn't need that type of person. He's already got those type of people in his life.
Eddie, you still with me?
No, I said
he
in
ain't
theory.
listening.
I said in theory. I
They
said in
don't-
theory.
there's a lot
I
of
never said I
restrictions.
was with. I said in theory. Yeah, it's just too hard.
I guarantee when we go to commercial break, Eddie will be like, I kind of like your idea.
Hi, I'm Alexi Lawless. I used to play soccer back in the 1900s for the U.S. Now you can find me talking about soccer this summer during the World Cup on Fox. Now through July 15th, you can get daily FIFA World Cup updates from me through your Alexa-enabled device. Just say, Alexa, play the Fox Sports Flash Briefing, and you'll get the latest tournament news straight from Russia. Alexa and Alexi. Now that's a winning team. Don't forget to watch the 2018 FIFA World Cup all tournament long live on Fox and FS1.
All right, welcome back. I'm joined now by Super Bowl champ Mark Schlereth and the NFL Network's Bucky Brooks. Let's move to the NFL, where some of the most socially active players have penned an op-ed in the New York Times with a message to President Trump about how he should deal with the issues of police brutality and prison reform. The players give Trump credit for commuting the sentence of nonviolent drug offender Alice Johnson after Kim Kardashian made him aware of the issue, but they insist he needs to do more than just asking for names of people to pardon, writing, quote, of the roughly 185,000 people locked up in federal prisons, about 79,000 are there for drug offenses of some kind, and 13.5% of them have sentences of 20 years or more. Imagine how many more people the president could pardon if he treated the issue like the systematic problem it is, rather than asking professional football players for a few cases. All right, I don't like the op-ed. I don't like the op-ed because, particularly the way they ended it there with the quote I just read. Why they're criticizing Trump for asking football players for their advice, but the football players have been kneeling for 2 years saying, no, take our advice. We know, we're the experts here. You started a players coalition, you're writing an op-ed trying to explain what should happen, but then you're criticizing the president for seeking your advice. And it doesn't, okay, well, he's seeking the wrong advice for us. Well, engage with him and explain that to him. You just said and you just acknowledged Kim Kardashian made him aware of an individual problem, and he acted on it. If you have a chance to engage with him and educate him about a larger problem, he's shown a willingness, celebrity or whoever you are, however qualified or not qualified you are, he'll listen and he'll react. I think the players wanted the easy way. They don't want to deal with the social media criticism of going and dealing with this guy face to face. This writing a letter to me is cowardly. Go deal with the man face to face. The leaders of the past went and dealt with people they did not like and respect because those people had the job and that's what they had to do. People act like Martin Luther King and Lyndon Johnson were out drinking cocktails and kicking it and partying together. They weren't. Lyndon Johnson was a racist and had no problem using the N-word, had no problem doing a lot of things. Martin Luther King engaged with him on different issues that they disagreed with and moved him to a place where they signed civil rights acts. Everybody wants it easy. Oh, social media will tear us up if we go engage with Trump, so let's fire off a letter criticizing him and keep the resistance going rather than engagement. I don't like it.
So I would tell you that this is the first step to potential engagement. At least I would hope that this is the first step to opening that dialogue. And you would hope that that would happen. I think one thing, and I tell my kids this all the time, they're looking at their Instagram feed or they're looking at the Twitter feed, and I say, what are people that you don't know doing right now? Like, check on the people that you don't know quick, because it's important, right? And hell, I'm guilty too. I'm there. I'm in that. But this is that generation. This is how we've raised this generation. My kids, I can call my kids and they won't pick up the phone. I text them, 2 seconds later, I'll get a text back. I mean, that's how they operate. So to me, this is the first part of the engagement. And hopefully, this creates an opportunity to have that personal dialogue and to sit there and say, yeah, we have differences, but that's okay. The beauty of being in a locker room, you've been there, I've been there, is we roll in with differences. Heck, I'm from Alaska, the other side of the track. I'm fish belly white from Alaska. You roll into a locker room, and you know what? You accept the fact that, yeah, we are different, but that gives us great strength. That brings us together as people, and now at least we have a dialogue going on to where maybe we can rectify some of the issues that we have in this country. So if this is the first step, I'll applaud them for at least making a step.
I'm going to piggyback off you. I'm going to applaud them because they are trying to give a voice to the voiceless. I do believe that you're correct. At some point, you have to have a conversation. No matter how difficult that conversation is, you have to be able to sit down directly man to man and have the conversation and talk about whatever the issues are, talk about what the possible solutions could be, and engage back and forth. That's the only way that we're going to reach a resolution on some of these issues. I believe that when you're a player, you want to do these things. You have to be educated, you have to be articulate on the subject matter, and you have to be active. And those guys that are kind of part of this opt-ed piece, they are active in their community, they are educated, they are articulate. Now they need to go and sit across from the table and have that conversation.
I hope the players realize, look, and he has made statements and seems to be seeking prison reform. If you check his policy and what his agenda is, he's made that quite clear. We're dancing around him and, oh, let's don't go to the White House. Oh, he's the worst person on the planet. Let's don't engage with him. It's a mistake because if you're waiting on that unicorn, that perfect person to get into the White House, and then you're going to go run and have all your agenda addressed when that person gets there, you're going to be waiting a long time because the person who was in the office previously was Barack Obama. And there's a lot of people in the black community who think he was a unicorn. And we didn't demand that he do what the players are now demanding that Donald Trump do. So we had a president that everybody in the black community agreed on was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't remember NFL players writing him group letters and op-eds demanding that he address prison reform. But a guy gets in that we don't like, and now we want him to do everything. It falls flat. It seems hypocritical. It seems disingenuous that you would ask Donald Trump something you wouldn't ask Barack Obama. But I hope that you all are right. I hope that this is the beginning of engagement, because I think a lot of these athletes that claim to be socially active, they're missing a hell of an opportunity. We will never have a president as big of a groupie sports fan as Donald Trump, who will sit and engage with athletes and sports figures on anything, and we're just going to pass that up so that we can be popular over social media. It's a mistake. All right, welcome back. Mark Schlereth and Bucky Brooks are back. Joining us now is the founder of the Big Lead, Jason McIntyre. Let's move to Baker Mayfield, who has taken his fair share of criticism from the media during his football career, and maybe nobody has been more critical of Baker than our very own Colin Cowherd, who actually called him undraftable at one point. Well, today, the two met face-to-face on the herd, and it didn't disappoint.
Let's get to the stuff I don't like. You know, sidelines, grabbing stuff, whizzing footballs. Come on, you're going to be a franchise quarterback. What are you grabbing stuff that? Why? What's going through your mind when you do that during games?
Have you played football past high school?
I quarterbacked, and I sucked.
Past high school?
Well, no, not past high school.
Football is a violent, competitive game.
Yeah.
That's the way it was always meant to be played.
Yeah.
You're supposed to play it with an edge. You're actually trying to impose your will on the other person to win.
Right.
There's things that come with it. No, my mistakes are not things that need to be a franchise quarterback. But within football, there's a lot of trash talk, a lot of stuff that is not, been made aware to everybody.
You're playing Ohio State. I watched every snap. You were, gloriously talented guy, right? And then I see this play right here. Now watch this, Baker. And you throw a touchdown, and instead of, now I don't like this. I'm going to tell you right now. How come you're not, what? Where are you going? Where are you going over there?
Our band is over there. Our student section's right there. And then straight back to our sideline.
What about your teammates?
Did you watch the rest of the game?
I watched the whole game.
You did? So you saw me celebrate with my teammates like the 3 touchdowns before that too?
I have a general rule. Don't like my quarterback showing up on police video. Don't love this.
That's what you said I was undraftable for, so let's watch it. I was not in trouble. Then the state of mind that I was in, which shouldn't have happened. For some reason, I thought I was in trouble and decided to try. I wouldn't say it's a runaway because that's not real good speed right there. But
when you look at that now, are you embarrassed? Are you mad?
Absolutely. There's so much regret about that because if I didn't run, there would have been
Nobody
nothing
cares.
ever. No, ever.
All right, so Baker Mayfield, to me, won the internet. And congratulations. He won the internet he was a great talk show host today. That's what I thought he came in and did. None of that I thought was a winning look for him as an NFL franchise quarterback. I think what Baker Mayfield is struggling with is victory. Baker Mayfield is still caught up in that walk-on, chip on my shoulder mindset. He did that twice in college football, and it made him great. Well, now he's won. He's the Heisman Trophy winner, and he's the #1 pick in the draft. That chip, that edge, or what, it's not going to play as well as when he was the walk-on and had to prove the world, everybody wrong. He's won. The reason why I can recognize this is because in my youth and up until in my 40s, I was a terrible winner. Terrible winner. I'd rub it in your face, and I'm just a terrible winner. He's got a job, franchise quarterback, that's for a mature person. He doesn't get to be the normal 23-year-old. He's a franchise quarterback. He's going to have to be a better winner, or this game's going to humble him.
I will say that Tom Brady, the greatest we've ever seen play, has an incredible chip on his shoulder. Acts sometimes in games, not grabbing his crotch and stuff, but he is incredibly motivated. He is a guy that will get in your face, will cuss you out, will get in a coach's face, all those different things. I remember a game against Tim Tebow in Denver when Tim Tebow was getting all the hype and he scored a touchdown on a quarterback sneak, and I'm telling you what, he tried to plant that football in the turf of Mile High Stadium. I mean, he is basically saying, in your face, you're getting all this hype and you can't play. So he's very much that way. It's the emotional maturity after the fact. Inside the lines, if you want to compete, you want to do that stuff, that's great. You can't grab your crotch. You can't do those things, especially as a franchise quarterback. But it's the chip that separates you. It's the chip that continues to motivate you. It's the chip that doesn't ever allow you to become sated by your success. The chip is great. It's just the emotional, adulting is hard. It's the emotional maturity part that he needs to get a hold of.
#1 pick and a Heisman Trophy winner. I think you got to play the chip differently.
But this is who he is. Like, look, he's cocky, he's arrogant, he has a ton of self-belief, he's a 2-time walk-on, as you alluded to. It is hard for him to see himself as the #1 overall pick. He always sees himself as the guy who was told that you can't be a quarterback, you can't start at a major college program, you can't win the Heisman Trophy. The problem that he's going to have is as the #1 pick, he's expected to play at a high level. And you can't play the underdog role when you go in as the #1 overall. How is he going to find new things to motivate him? That is the challenge. We're already hearing in minicamp he wasn't ready to compete with Tyrod Taylor. Many of us maybe at this table will say that Tyrod Taylor is a mid-level starting quarterback, if not worse. So the fact that he can't go into Cleveland and automatically knock Tyrod Taylor out the box, to me, is telling. Maybe he was overdrafted, but regardless, he's #1. He's going to have to play up to the expectations to be the franchise guy today.
I agree. I thought Mayfield handled himself great today. I will say this, and not just because he's on the show, but I thought Colin Cowherd did a great job pushing back. He didn't back down. I know a lot of hosts who do interviews, they might have backed down and been like, oh, Baker's here, I got to be nice.
That's not our conversation.
Yeah, well, Colin didn't back down. But as for Baker Mayfield, I got to say, that's what made him special, Whitlock. That identity of, I have a chip on my shoulder. And I don't think he necessarily needs to change it or rein it in. I think he's just got to be better on the delivery. Like today, there was some brusqueness, some like, I know more than you. Did you ever play football? And I didn't like that. But he'll grow and mature. He's, 23 years old?
Yeah, I don't know if he changes like that. That's who he is.
But the delivery, when you are doing interviews and conducting and talking to the media, some of the stuff he's saying, I think he'll eventually rein that in as he grows.
I'm not so sure because he won the Heisman Trophy. He's the #1 overall pick in the draft. You got to have some self-awareness. You won. And so when I'm sitting down with Colin Cowherd, who's been criticizing me, I'm sitting down there going, I won. Colin Cowherd was wrong. I'm the #1 pick in the draft. I won the Heisman Trophy. And so the more mature approach is, I don't really want to make news in this interview. I don't want to win the internet. I don't want, because this attitude that we just saw with Colin Cowherd, I think we may see some of that in the locker room. And trust me, even on the Cleveland Browns, there's some guys there that'll be like, huh?
I think here's to your point, and it's an excellent point. The difference, and I brought up Brady. The difference is Brady is a 6th-round pick.
Yeah.
And as a 6th-round pick, when you walk in the locker room, anything you give me is gravy. We actually root for you. You're a late-round guy, it's gravy. When you're the #1 overall pick, you damn well better be able to play. And you are going to be scrutinized 10 times harder than those guys late. We almost, in a locker room, root for you to fail. I mean, there's a piece of you that said, if you don't perform and you don't handle yourself the right way, we'll put in that locker room, we'll put a hell of a lot more pressure on you than we're going to put on that 7th round or that 6th round, whatever the case may be. So that's the one thing. He's got to continue to drive and have that chip on his shoulder, but he has to handle himself the right way, especially when you're that CEO of a football. Yeah.
All right, to Jameis Winston, who is reportedly bracing for a suspension of up to 3 games for failing to notify the NFL of an incident in which he was accused of sexual assault by an Uber driver back in 2016. The story was first reported by BuzzFeed last fall, and Winston denied the allegations. Either way, we all know Jameis's history of problematic behavior, including another accusation of sexual assault at Florida State. I'm someone that ended this past regular season, last year's regular season, high on Jameis Winston. He had an incident in that final regular season game where he snapped and went off, and I went the total opposite of everyone else. It showed me his passion, and it made me think authentic, like, man, this dude really wants to be a great player. Having said that, if he's going to get suspended at the start of this year, he is in such a make-or-break point of his career. If he doesn't perform at a high level, he will be dusted from this league. He will be no one's backup. He won't get a second chance to be a starter anyplace else. It's just too many headaches. Going all the way back to Florida State, going all the way back, because even though I don't like what he did at the end of that regular season game, it made me understand him a bit better. But it's just like Jameis, if he doesn't perform this season, people will say he just can't handle being a #1 pick. He can't handle being a starting quarterback. Too many headaches. 2 or 3 game suspension at the start of this year. This dude better play lights out this year.
2 or 3 game suspension is problematic. As far as him not getting another opportunity, it was Steve Keim, the general manager of the Arizona Cardinals, that once said, if Hannibal Lecter could run a 4.3, we would call it an eating disorder, right? I mean, so this kid is super talented. He throws the football exceptionally well. His biggest sin, his unforgivable sin, is he's a mistake repeater. He repeats the same mistakes. It becomes hero ball. He thinks he can make every play, and he doesn't know and understand the plays that he can't make. And if he reins that in, if he could rein that in, this kid could be a Pro Bowl, top flight quarterback in this league. When you talk about his leadership qualities, and I've done several Tampa games, and I've been at their practice facility, and I've talked to their GM, and I've talked to their head coach, they love him. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a quick story about the kind of leadership that he has. When the hurricane ripped through Miami and through Tampa at the start of the season, they were loading people up on the plane, and there was a couple guys that were going to stay behind, and Jameis said, I will not leave unless you put every guy on this team and all their family members on this plane. I'm not getting on it. And that's the kind of attitude and that's the kind of leadership he has from a team perspective. They love.
Those are the good stories.
They love Jameis.
There's the bad stories.
The stuff you don't ever hear.
Yeah.
It's the good stuff that you don't hear. Right. But they love. I'm just telling you, they love him. He's getting suspended because he didn't report the incident. It wasn't that he's guilty of the incident.
Involved in the incident.
Right. He didn't go to the NFL or go to his team and say, hey, this happened. And that's the conduct policy that they're nabbing him for, if you will.
It is a make-or-break season for Jameis Winston. He's in year 4. He's been a 3-year starter. Now, on the field, I would say his game has been trending up. Career highs in completion percentage, passer rating, lows in interception percentage. The problem is, when you're the quarterback, you're ultimately judged by winning. Right now, they haven't been a winning team. A lot of expectations last year that this team would get to the playoffs. They underperformed. He has to play at a level that gets them over the hump. I'm not saying his playoffs are bust, but they have to be a 9 or 10 win team. If not, they probably have to blow out everybody. Head coach, general manager, quarterback goes. everybody goes. He potentially could be on his third head coach going into next season. Most quarterbacks don't get that opportunity. Jameis Winston has to deliver. He has to win games to be there.
When you look at their division, where are the wins coming from? Okay, Atlanta, New Orleans, Carolina. The teams all made the playoffs last year. Jameis could be, 4,500 yards, 40 touchdowns, and they could still miss the playoffs. Like, that's a good team, but not a great one. I think they picked up his option earlier this offseason. I think Jameis Winston, I don't think they're going to kick the guy to the curb. He's only 24. Remember, Matt Stafford had some growing pains early, no suspensions. And Alex Smith as well needed a second team to really pop. So I think they're going to give
You
Winston.
talk about the division, Drew Brees, Cam Newton, Matt
I mean,
Ryan.
that's three MVPs
Right.
How's he going to be better than any of those guys?
It will be tough, but I just think his behavior has been so. And I'm telling you, I ended last season. We can go get the tape.
Yeah.
Like, I'm all in on Jameis Winston. But this suspension, he's had in this environment, in this Me Too environment, I just think he's at a critical stage where he better play at the highest level, because if he doesn't, and there's another problem that a team has to deal with, that team is going to be crucified along with Jameis Winston in this current environment. All right, welcome back, Eddie House, Chris Broussard, and Jason McIntyre are back. Let's move to Minnesota, where NBA Hall of Famer and TNT analyst Kevin McHale was spotted in the crowd at a rally for President Trump yesterday, and Twitter completely lost its mind, with people actually calling for McHale's job for no other reason than he disagreed with his politics. Listen, I think the question here is, did he make a mistake going to the Trump rally? I'm going to say he made a mistake if he didn't think it through. He's damn near 7 foot tall. He's going to be spotted. He has to know that this is going to generate some sort of reaction. So if he went there not thinking there would be no reaction, he made a mistake. If he knew exactly what he was doing, knew people were going to talk about it, I got no problem with it. If he wants to be a Trump supporter, he has every right to be. I think the Twitter reaction or whatever is just what Twitter does. But if he went thinking he was just going to be another guy in that crowd and there would be no reaction, it's very foolish, and he made a mistake, and he's baiting NBA players to respond. If he wants to wear it on his sleeve, his Trump support, Godspeed, good luck to you. He has every right, and people should mind their own business.
My guess is he didn't think it through, but I think it's a shame that people are actually calling for him never to work in the NBA again because he went to a Trump rally. I'm not a Trump supporter, didn't vote for him, but an American citizen can't go to a rally for the president of the United States. I don't care what party he's in, okay? There are some people, and furthermore, I'm not about hypocrisy. I'm not about condemning people that get caught, but overlooking the people that do the same thing but haven't gotten caught publicly. And anybody that doesn't want Kevin McHale to work again in the NBA for this is a hypocrite, because more than half of the owners and probably more than half of the executives and coaches voted for Donald Trump.
And I would think 30% of the players as well.
Well, I know that if he thought it through or didn't think it through, it didn't matter. He's going to get seen. Like you said, he's 7 foot and he looked like Frankenstein. Okay? So that's number one. He's going to be seen. Everybody knows who he is. But there shouldn't be a problem with it at all. This is what America is about, to have your freedom of religion, freedom of speech. You could pick the politician you want to follow. I don't think there's a problem with that. I think everybody's just so sensitive now and so geared with anger and hate that anything that he can grab to start hating on and start talking about and pointing, I think that's what this society has done. That's what social media has done, is created this negative monster that whatever anybody says or does, people take it the wrong way. People are sensitive. And I call for a man's job for supporting somebody that he voted for. Exactly. I mean, that's just totally out of bounds, out of pocket.
Total agreement with you guys. This is frustrating to see, honestly. It's like, who cares that he went to the rally? And I'm with Broussard. I didn't vote for Trump. I'm not a Trump supporter. It shouldn't matter that he did that. He should still be able to coach again. Whitlock, this is a guy 2 years ago took the Houston Rockets to the conference finals. He knows basketball.
I get it, but I think we're having a bit of more of a Twitter discussion than I want to have. I want to. Was it a mistake? He works in the NBA.
He's from Minnesota.
Could this potentially play wrong with NBA players things? Could there be
You
some
leave
sort of
the
backlash?
politics out of the locker room. As he said, half the owners.
I think it's some players that voted for Trump.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of players
You said
probably that voted for
30%.
Trump.
No, I agree with that. But you have Steve Kerr, Greg Popovich, most of the Golden State Warriors, LeBron James going after Trump repeatedly. And so in this league where he works and where he's a legend, any risk there that he's alienated himself from any current players, players he works with, I don't know. I think they should respect it, but I'm just.
So where are we?
I'll
Do we
say a
need
few
to look?
things.
Do we need to go down the list, guys, now and see who's a registered Republican and a Democrat?
Well, we know,
That's not the
but we
question.
do
I'm
know
asking a
that
different
Tom
question.
Brady had "Make America Great Again" had
I
in his
would
locker
agree.
room, and did that affect how his teammates played for him, or how anybody blocked for him, or somebody tackled or caught the ball? I don't think it bothered him. I think once you get between those lines, the bottom line is when you come to work, bring your hard hat, your lunch pail, your boots, and let's go to work. And then whatever you do outside of work, that's yours as long as it doesn't affect us collectively.
Yeah, and I think, look, if he were to get another job coaching or even in the front office, at the end of the day, money talks. And if they were offering a certain amount of money, players wouldn't even think about this before going to play for him. So I just think it won't be that big of a deal. And also, the players have spoken out about social justice and done some things. But while I applaud what they've done, they're not going that far. They're not going to go too far. You know, they don't fight. They haven't fought back on the anthem rule that they have to stand. So I don't think players are really going to go fight that hard against a guy.
My final thought on this, and this may be too much of a final thought to end on, but I just want people to be careful about hypocrisy, because as I took in this story late last night, early this morning, I thought about, I went to the Million Man March.
Yeah.
And it's I loved it. It was one of the greatest things I ever attended. It was led by Louis Farrakhan, who is far more racist than Donald Trump, has a religion that calls white people the devil. Black men have never had to apologize for going to the Million Man March. Why should Kevin McHale have to apologize for supporting the President of the United States? All right, welcome back. Mark Schlereth is here for Last Call. All right, Mark, I got a curveball for you. The NBA draft is tonight, but it's got some competition as the first season of LeVar Ball's new league, the Junior Basketball Association, will premiere tonight on Facebook Live. Where are you going to be watching this at?
Well, I'm not going to watch it. And as the parent of a professional athlete, this dude drives me nuts. But I'll tell you what doesn't drive me nuts, the hustle. If the phone's going to keep ringing and people are going to keep paying you, then go ahead. I'm not mad about his hustle.
I wonder what the viewer, this is going up against the NBA draft. This is when you kick off your Junior Basketball Association on Facebook. It's a doubleheader tonight, by the way.
All right.
I'll be on pins and needles. All right, to Philadelphia, where the Philly fanatic apparently has a cannon that shoots hot dogs into the stands. And shockingly, something went wrong with a fan being injured after they're taking a hot dog to the face. Schlereth, I know your radio history.
Right.
You've had many surgeries. Have you ever been hit in the face by a hot dog?
Well, what kind of hot dogs? Now, this lady's Kathy McVeigh, I think is her name. She had a CAT scan and x-rays. Like, what? Those are brick dogs. Like, that's not a hot dog, that's a brick dog.
It's wrapped in, in
Tinfoil.
duct
It's
tape.
like, I don't know, what is it?
Somebody's getting sued.
No, she said she's not going to sue. But I went to a opening day game and ate a hot dog every inning once. Every inning.
I've done it every half inning.